build on farms a lot of is fencing. Whether it's tall fencing, short fencing, fencing can add up. The cheapest way I've found to make fencing, and I'm sure I've talked about in other videos, is stucco wire. And here's an example of it. Our bunnies sometimes escape, and also our chickens will escape. And so we only have this around here. For a variety of reasons, we don't have deer, which is usually an issue on most farms, but for a variety of reasons, we don't have those deer here. So this is stucco wire. You can find it at any Home Hardware, Home Depot. It's easy to patch. Unlike chicken wire, chicken wire you just mess around with it a little bit and it just gets fucked right away. It's bad. So this stuff though, it's easy. What you can do is you can simply cut here on this side of this piece, cut all the way down, and then what happens is you're left with tongs here, and then what you do is simply wrap it around the next piece of fence you're wanting to do. So it's really easy to patch. It comes in 4-foot high pieces. So if you want to do an 8-foot fence, which is pretty common to try and block out deer, you have to buy a couple rolls. But I did the math on posts and fencing for my method. If you wanted to do an entire acre, you would be looking at about $2,100. Now, if you're looking at some of the other stuff that's super robust, like you're trying to keep in bulls, I guess, you're looking more like $5,000. So here's another example. This is its full height. As you can see here, I have a couple different pieces that are now overlaying. And what I'm talking about is this right here, where you're able to simply wrap around and bam, it's patched. No messing around, no special tools, just some wire cutters and you're good to go. It's galvanized so it doesn't rust, it lasts forever. Comes in 112-foot rolls and it works out to about $1 a foot. And so with $5 posts and all that, like I said, an acre is going to cost you about $2,100 if you were going to fence an entire acre. Sometimes you only want to fence a little bit. And then you might ask yourself, well, how tough is it? Well, here on the farm, we have my sister's goats, and goats are horrendously abusive on things, and goats can't stand up to it. The one thing though is, I'll show you an example here. This isn't stucco wire, but I'll give you an example of, if you are going to use it for livestock, how you want to put it into your scheme of things. So here, what happens is you'll notice, you can see the post here and the fencing's on the other side. So assuming this was stucco wire, what you would want to do is make sure, and your goats were going to be on the inside, you want to make sure the stucco wire is on the other side of the post. Because if not, I just use simple crown staples out of a air stapler to staple these in. I don't use those horrendous heavy duty nails. A lot of the times, these kind of nails that are being used, this kind of fencing is really designed for large livestock like horses or bulls, and so yeah, you're going to use these, but I just use an air nailer with a 1.5-inch crown and I tap those in. I don't have any samples nearby, but basically you want to make sure it's on the inside so that when they're jumping up on it and pressing against it, they're not pressing against or pushing out the crown staples that way. So just a simple air nailer, you can charge it up. Mine holds a ton of air, and then I can carry it around the property and I can do fence up anywhere. So here's another example. So this is its full 4 feet of height, and then here, the nice part is that I save almost everything because I never know when this stuff is going to come in handy. So what happened was I ran the fencing here, came to there, so I pounded the post there, and then I attached 2 different pieces. So as you can see here, all I use is a little air nailer. That way also, if and when you need to make modifications to your farm or to your fence line, you don't have to totally destroy your fence post or, you know, spend an hour trying to do it. These things will come out relatively easy. If you get a good pair of wire cutters, you can actually snip the top and be done with it. So there's another reason. If you're not too sure what your configuration is going to be or how it's going to look, another reason to use this fencing is that with the air nailer, you're able to pull them out quickly and quickly change your fence line if you want to. So especially you're starting out in your first couple of years of a farm, you don't know where things are going to be. You've decided in my case, I've expanded the chicken coop, so I can quickly do that without having to bust my chops and have to pull out those big, fat, ugly staples. So stucco wire, $1 a foot, 4 feet high. You can fence a lot of stuff. I am also going to experiment with this stuff in terms of trellising. I think that the amount of time I'm spending trellising stuff, I think is ridiculous with using zip ties and tying. I don't mind it, but if I want to be fast and quick, here's an example of what that might look like. Let's say over here, I planted, actually this will really be a good example. So here I've planted some beans, and what I've done is I've run the rebar wire along here. I have a screw, the rebar wire, and then it runs along. The beans are climbing it. That's great, but they're also climbing at a sloppy angle. I have to wait till they're a certain height, about 8 inches off the ground, till it does it. They start falling off at that point. And so what I'm thinking of is using this fencing, because I know these are 20-foot beds. What I can do is I can make them to a universal length of 20 feet, and then I'll use maybe, I would imagine on a 20-foot bed, I would use 4 pieces of rebar, weave it in between, slam it in the ground, and boom, I have my trellising done, moving on to the next thing. And then when it's done, what I'm thinking in theory, again, I'll report back on this, is that when I'm done harvesting these beans at the end of the season, what I'll do is I'll just rip the rebar out, I'll snip all the bottoms of the beans, I'll pull that fencing off to another area. Hopefully by then I have a power washer. I'm thinking I can probably just power wash this stuff off. We'll see if that's cost efficient, time efficient, or if I'm better off just quickly pulling it all off. I definitely don't want to let it dry. I've had to do that before. That sucks. So I'm thinking beans, peas, tomatoes, spaghetti squash, on and on and on. Like, there's so many reasons why that kind of trellising could be really fast. So all of a sudden the stucco wire has a lot more uses and a lot more purposes than simply just fencing. So that's what I use for fencing. Hopefully it saves you a whole bunch of bucks. Really easy to use, cheap, readily available, no special orders. Again, following that criteria of what I look for on my farm when I'm looking for certain kinds of hardware to make it quick and readily available.